Imagine a world where loyalty is currency and betrayal is a death sentence. Welcome to the story of Henry Hill, a man who dared to dance with the devil and lived to tell the tale. From the gritty streets of Brooklyn to the glittering heights of organized crime, Henry's journey is a roller coaster of power, paranoia, and ultimate betrayal that would shake the foundations of the Mafia itself. Born into a world of poverty and struggle, young Henry Hill found himself drawn to the allure of the wise guys, their fine suits and shiny shoes a stark contrast to his own worn-down surroundings. Little did he know that his fascination would lead him down a path of no return into the heart of one of the most notorious crime families in America. From his first taste of the criminal underworld to the infamous Lufthansa heist and his eventual decision to break the sacred code of silence, Henry Hill's story is a cautionary tale of ambition, greed, and the high price of the American dream. Join us as we delve into the life of a man who went from mobster to informant and whose legacy continues to captivate audiences to this day. Chapter 1: A Boy from Brooklyn. The Brooklyn streets were a far cry from Manhattan's picturesque neighborhoods, but for young Henry Hill, this gritty working-class enclave was his entire world. Born in 1943 to an Irish father and an Italian mother, Henry was the second eldest of 8 children in a boisterous household that rarely knew peace. His father, a struggling truck driver, was a stern and distant figure who seldom showed affection or approval. Henry's mother, though doting, had been worn down by constant financial strain and her husband's cold indifference. The Hill family occupied a cramped apartment, the air heavy with stale cigarette smoke and the occasional aroma of his mother's homemade marinara sauce. As Henry grew older, he found solace in the vibrant, if illicit, world just beyond his family's front door. The local wise guys commanded a respect and power that Henry craved. He'd watch, mesmerized, as they sauntered down the sidewalk, their fine suits and gleaming shoes a stark contrast to the dilapidated buildings and litter-strewn streets. One day, while running an errand for his mother, Henry encountered a group of these men outside a neighborhood social club. Their laughter and banter exuded confidence and authority. Summoning his courage, the young boy approached them, eager for a glimpse into their world. "Hey, kid, what are you doing here?" asked one of the men, a tall, broad-shouldered figure, his voice gruff. Henry's heart raced. I'm just running an errand for my mom," he stammered, his eyes darting between the men. The man studied him, amusement playing on his lips. "You got a name, kid?" "Henry," he replied, barely above a whisper. "Well, Henry," the man said, grinning, "you look like you got a good head on your shoulders. Ever thought about working for us?" Henry's eyes widened, excitement and trepidation surging through him. "Working for you?" he asked, scarcely believing his ears. The man nodded, his expression turning serious. "We could use a kid like you, someone with a little hustle. You interested?" Henry didn't hesitate. The chance to be part of this world, to earn the respect that had always eluded him, was irresistible. "Yeah," he said, his voice steadier now. "Yeah, I'm interested." The man clapped a heavy hand on Henry's shoulder, his grip firm, but not unkind. "Good. Come back here tomorrow, and we'll see what we can do for you." As Henry hurried home, his mother's errand forgotten, he felt exhilarated. This was his chance, his ticket out of poverty and obscurity. The world of the wise guys, with its promise of power and respect, was calling, and Henry was more than ready to answer. In the days that followed, Henry became a fixture in the neighborhood, running errands and performing small tasks for the local mobsters. He reveled in the attention and sense of belonging, basking in the respect and deference the men showed him. It was a far cry from the indifference and disappointment he faced at home, and Henry found himself drawn ever deeper into the criminal underworld. The work wasn't without risks. Henry quickly learned that in organized crime, loyalty and discretion were paramount. He witnessed firsthand the consequences of betrayal when a young associate, caught skimming from the books, was brutally beaten in broad daylight. The sight of the man's bloodied face and broken body chilled Henry to the bone, but it also reinforced the importance of obedience and unwavering commitment to the cause. As Henry's involvement with the wise guys grew, so did his confidence and ambition. He began to envision a future where he'd no longer be just another nameless, faceless member of a large, impoverished family. Instead, he'd be someone, a respected figure in his own right, with the power and resources to provide for himself and eventually his own family. This dream would soon become reality. Henry's reliability and eagerness to learn caught the attention of the organization's higher-ups. They saw in him the potential to become a valuable asset, a young protege who could be molded into a trusted and capable crew member. And so, with each passing year, Henry's role within the criminal hierarchy expanded, his ascent fueled by a potent combination of ambition, cunning, and unwavering commitment to the code of silence that governed the wise guy's world. As he stood on the cusp of adulthood, Henry Hill could scarcely have imagined the twists and turns his life would take. The promise of power, wealth, and respect had lured him into the shadowy realm of organized crime, and he was determined to seize every opportunity. Little did he know that the choices he'd make in the years to come would not only shape his own destiny, but would also have far-reaching consequences that would echo through the annals of criminal history. Chapter 2: Rising Through the Ranks. As Henry Hill matured, his fascination with organized crime deepened. The local gangsters, who had once seemed larger-than-life figures in his childhood, became his role models, embodying the power, respect, and wealth he craved. Determined to carve out his own place in this shadowy underworld, Henry actively sought opportunities to ingratiate himself with the Mafia. Henry's first major break came when he was introduced to Paul Vario, a capo in the Lucchese crime family. Vario, a formidable and ruthless man, took a liking to the young, eager to please Henry, sensing his potential. Impressed by Henry's reliability and street smarts, Vario began to slowly integrate him into the family's operations, starting with simple tasks like running errands and delivering messages. Paulie saw something in me, a kind of hunger and loyalty that he respected, Henry would later recall. He knew I was willing to do whatever it took to prove myself and earn a place in the organization. As Henry's responsibilities grew, so did his reputation within the Mafia. He demonstrated a keen eye for detail, a knack for problem-solving, and a willingness to take on tasks others might shy away from. Whether collecting debts, facilitating drug deals, or providing muscle for intimidation, Henry approached each assignment with unwavering dedication. His ascent wasn't without challenges. Being of mixed heritage, Henry was ineligible to become a made man, a fully initiated member of the Lucchese family. This meant he would always occupy a precarious position, never fully accepted as an equal among the Italian-American mobsters. Yet, Henry's drive and adaptability allowed him to overcome this obstacle earning the trust and respect of his peers through sheer determination. One of Henry's early triumphs came when he was tasked with overseeing a lucrative loan sharking operation. Impressed by Henry's ability to collect payments and maintain the books, Vario entrusted him with managing the day-to-day affairs of the business. This responsibility not only increased Henry's standing within the organization, but also provided him with a steady stream of income, allowing him to indulge in the lavish lifestyle that had once seemed out of reach. As Henry's wealth and influence grew, so did his appetite for the trappings of the criminal underworld. He surrounded himself with a tight-knit circle of associates who shared his unwavering loyalty to the Lucchese family. Together, they engaged in various illicit activities, from extortion and hijacking to drug trafficking and money laundering. "It was a brotherhood, you know," Henry would later reflect. "We looked out for each other, had each other's backs. That kind of loyalty was everything in our world." The camaraderie and respect Henry found within the Mafia stood in stark contrast to the fractured relationships he had experienced in his own family. While his parents had struggled to make ends meet and his siblings had often resented his favored status, the Mafia provided him with a sense of belonging and purpose he had never known before. "The guys, they were my family," Henry would say. "They accepted me for who I was, and they treated me with a respect that I never got at home." As Henry's reputation continued to grow, so did his confidence and ambition. He began to take on more high-profile assignments, proving his mettle time and again. His involvement in the Lufthansa heist, the infamous 1978 robbery at JFK Airport, would ultimately become the defining moment of his criminal career, a turning point that would set in motion a series of events that would forever alter the course of his life. Chapter 3. The Lufthansa Heist. Anticipation crackled in the air as Henry Hill and his crew huddled in a dimly lit warehouse, scrutinizing the intricate details of their latest scheme. The Lufthansa Heist, as it would later be known, represented the pinnacle of months of meticulous planning and a lifetime of criminal ambition. Henry's steady ascent through the Lucchese crime family ranks had led to this moment, his chance to cement his status as a true made man. The target, the Lufthansa cargo terminal at JFK Airport, home to a massive cache of cash and jewelry awaiting transport. The potential score was mind-boggling, an estimated $5 million in untraceable bills and priceless gems. As the team pored over the terminal's layout, security protocols, and their escape plan, adrenaline surged through Henry's veins. This was his moment to prove his worth and solidify his place in the Mafia hierarchy. The plan was audacious, but Henry had unwavering faith in his crew. Jimmy Burke, the seasoned criminal mastermind, had orchestrated every step with precision. Paul Vario, the capo who'd taken Henry under his wing, had given his tacit approval, recognizing that a successful heist would bring immense wealth and prestige to their family. On the night of the operation, the team executed their plan with military precision. Clad in NYPD uniforms and wielding realistic-looking weapons, they stormed the terminal, overpowering guards and corralling terrified employees. Henry's heart pounded as he helped gather the cash and jewelry, loading it into waiting vans with a mixture of exhilaration and disbelief. As the getaway vehicles sped from the scene, Henry felt triumphant. The Lufthansa heist had been a resounding success, and he'd played a crucial role. The sheer magnitude of their haul was staggering, and Henry couldn't help but envision the luxurious life that awaited him. Yet, The heist's aftermath would prove to be a double-edged sword. Their massive score had drawn unwanted attention from law enforcement, determined to uncover the perpetrators' identities. Henry and his associates found themselves constantly looking over their shoulders, paranoid that their every move was being watched. As the investigation intensified, cracks in their carefully constructed alliance began to show. Tensions flared among crew members, each growing suspicious of the others and fearful of potential betrayals. The weight of their stolen riches became a burden as they struggled to launder the cash and conceal their newfound wealth from authorities. Henry, once brimming with confidence, grew increasingly anxious and on edge. The heist's initial thrill gave way to a pervasive unease as he realized the steep price of their vast wealth. The Mafia's code of silence, or omertà, once a cornerstone of his criminal life, now felt like a noose around his neck. The Lufthansa heist had been a defining moment in Henry's journey, a testament to his skills and ambition. But as the dust settled, he couldn't shake the feeling that the consequences of his actions were about to catch up with him, threatening to unravel the very foundation of the life he'd so carefully built. Chapter 4. Paranoia and Betrayal. The euphoria of the Lufthansa heist had long since faded, replaced by a gnawing unease that consumed Henry Hill's mind. The massive influx of cash had initially granted him unprecedented comfort and security, but that feeling was rapidly eroding. The paranoia that had always lurked beneath the surface now threatened to overwhelm him entirely. As weeks turned into months, Henry found himself constantly looking over his shoulder, convinced his former associates were plotting against him. The once tight bonds of loyalty that had bound the crew together now felt tenuous and fragile. Having witnessed firsthand the brutal consequences of betrayal, the thought of facing that same fate filled him with dread. Henry's drug addiction, once a means of escape, now threatened to unravel him completely. The cocaine that had fueled his ambition and energy left him jittery and unfocused, making it increasingly difficult to navigate the treacherous waters of the criminal underworld. His once reveled-in lavish lifestyle now felt like a gilded cage, trapping him in a world of his own making. The strain on his family life was palpable. His wife, Karen, had always been his anchor, but even she couldn't shield him from the mounting pressure. The constant fear of mob retaliation forced them to relocate multiple times, uprooting their children and severing the few connections they had outside the criminal world. Henry's relationship with his children, once a source of solace, had become strained. They had grown up in the shadow of his criminal exploits, and the weight of that legacy bore heavily on them. The once vibrant and carefree children had become guarded and wary, mirroring the tension that permeated their home. As paranoia consumed him, Henry found himself increasingly isolated, unable to trust even his closest confidants. The code of silence, or omertà, that had once protected him now felt like a noose around his neck, choking off any chance of escape. The threat of violence loomed large, and Henry knew any misstep could be his last. In the midst of this turmoil, a glimmer of hope emerged. Through a series of chance encounters, Henry began to suspect the FBI was closing in on his criminal activities. The realization that he might strike a deal with the authorities and secure his own safety slowly took root in his mind, setting the stage for a decision that would forever alter the course of his life. The prospect of betraying his criminal family, the very people who had welcomed him into their fold and granted him a sense of belonging, filled Henry with a mixture of dread and temptation. He had witnessed the brutal retribution that awaited those who broke the code of silence. But the fear of his own demise and the constant paranoia that threatened to consume him began to outweigh his loyalty. As Henry wrestled with this momentous decision, the walls seemed to close in around him. The lavish lifestyle he had once coveted now felt like a trap, a gilded cage threatening to become his final resting place. The choice before him was clear, but its weight threatened to crush him. In the end, the instinct for self-preservation won out, and Henry Hill made the fateful decision to cooperate with the FBI. It was a choice that would forever alter the course of his life and the lives of those around him, a decision that would test the limits of loyalty and reveal the true cost of redemption. Chapter 5. The decision to cooperate. The noose tightened around Henry Hill's neck. After the euphoric high of the Lufthansa heist, paranoia and fear consumed his every waking moment. Their vast wealth had brought more problems than solutions as the crew struggled to launder the stolen cash and evade relentless law enforcement. Henry's once promising future within the Lucchese crime family had become a liability. Heightened scrutiny from authorities and growing distrust among associates made him acutely aware of his fragile position. He had risen through the ranks, earning the respect of made men like Jimmy Burke and Paul Vario, but now found himself constantly looking over his shoulder, wondering who might betray him. His drug addiction only exacerbated his anxiety. The once reliable Henry Hill was now a nervous wreck, his mind racing with paranoid thoughts and fear of retribution. His lavish lifestyle, once a source of pride, now served as a constant reminder of his precarious criminal empire. As pressure mounted, Henry found himself at a crossroads. The code of silence, omerta, that had once bound him to the Mafia now felt like a noose. He had witnessed the brutal consequences of betrayal, the ruthless efficiency with which the family dealt with those who violated their trust. Yet the prospect of a lengthy prison sentence or a violent death at the hands of his former associates weighed heavily on his mind. One fateful night, as Henry sat alone in his safe house, the weight of his decisions finally caught up with him. He thought of his family, the loved ones he had sacrificed for his criminal ambitions, and realized he could no longer continue down this path. With a trembling hand, Henry picked up the phone and dialed a number given to him by an acquaintance, a number that would change the course of his life forever. On the other end, an FBI agent listened intently as Henry Hill, once a rising star in the Lucchese crime family, uttered the words that would shatter the code of silence that had long protected him. "I want to cooperate." The agent's response was measured, but Henry sensed the triumph in his voice. This was a monumental moment, a turning point that would send shockwaves through the criminal underworld. Henry Hill, a made man, was about to betray the very family that had given him power, respect, and a sense of belonging that had eluded him in his own home. As the FBI agent began to lay out the terms of his cooperation, Henry felt a mixture of relief and dread. He knew his decision would come at a great personal cost. The Mafia would not take kindly to his betrayal. But the alternative, a life constantly looking over his shoulder, never truly free, was no longer an option. In the days that followed, Henry worked closely with the FBI, providing detailed information about the Lucchese family's operations, hierarchy, and inner workings. His testimony would prove instrumental in the convictions of numerous made men, including his former mentor, Paul Vario. The process was arduous, both physically and emotionally. Henry had to sever ties with his old life, leaving behind the lavish comforts and sense of belonging he had found in the Mafia. He was forced to enter the witness protection program, cutting all contact with his family and friends and starting anew in a foreign environment. The weight of his decision bore heavily on him. He had betrayed the code of silence, the very foundation upon which the Mafia operated. He knew his former associates would hunt him, that his life would forever be in danger. The guilt of turning against the only family he had ever known became a constant companion, a burden that would haunt him for the rest of his days. Yet, as Henry grappled with the consequences of his actions, he found solace in knowing he had chosen survival. The alternative, remaining loyal to the Mafia and facing an uncertain future of violence and incarceration, was no longer tenable. In the end, his instinct for self-preservation had won out, even if it meant sacrificing the only sense of belonging he had ever known. As FBI agents escorted him to his new safe haven, Henry Hill's eyes reflected a mixture of trepidation and resignation. He had made the decision to cooperate, to betray the very people he had once considered family. It was a choice that would forever change the course of his life, and the ripples of his betrayal would be felt for years to come. Chapter 6: Legacy of a Gangster. As years passed, Henry Hill's life as a cooperating witness unfolded with persistent unease and uncertainty. The promise of a fresh start under FBI protection came at a steep price, severing ties with the only family he'd ever truly known. Though his testimony had significantly diminished the Mafia's reach, the lingering threat of retribution weighed heavily on his mind. Relocated to a nondescript suburban neighborhood, Henry struggled to adapt to the monotony of everyday life. The adrenaline-fueled thrills of his criminal past had given way to constant vigilance and isolation. He found himself longing for the camaraderie and respect he'd once enjoyed within the Luquet's crime family, a yearning intensified by his ongoing battle with drug addiction. Karen, his wife, had reluctantly entered the witness protection program with him, but their marriage was visibly strained. Their children, once accustomed to the lavish trappings of their father's criminal lifestyle, now faced a world of anonymity and constant upheaval. Henry's inability to provide the material comforts they'd grown accustomed to only widened the growing rift within the family. As time passed, Henry's public persona as a former mobster took on a life of its own. The publication of his memoir, Wise Guy, and the subsequent release of the acclaimed film Goodfellas, based on his story, thrust him into an uncomfortable limelight. The man who had once craved respect and attention now found himself the subject of intense fascination and scrutiny. Journalists and true crime enthusiasts sought him out, eager to uncover intimate details of his life within the Mafia. Torn between a desire for privacy and a need to control the narrative, Henry often found himself in a delicate dance, carefully curating the information he shared. The public's insatiable appetite for the gritty realities of organized crime had transformed his personal experiences into a cultural phenomenon, one he struggled to reconcile with his own sense of identity. In quiet moments, Henry reflected on the choices that had led him to this point. The thrill of the heist, the camaraderie of his criminal associates, and the allure of the lavish lifestyle had once seemed worth the risk. But as he sat in his nondescript suburban home, surrounded by remnants of a life he'd once known, the true cost of his actions became painfully clear. The weight of his betrayal, both to his criminal family and his own moral compass, had taken a heavy toll. He grappled with guilt, remorse, and a profound loneliness that no amount of material wealth could fill. The code of silence, omerta, that had once protected him, now seemed like a distant, unattainable ideal, a relic of a world he could never fully return to. Henry's struggles with addiction only compounded his challenges. The constant temptation to numb pain and regret through substance abuse threatened to unravel the fragile threads of his new life. He found himself caught in a vicious cycle, unable to fully escape the demons that had long plagued him. As years went by, Henry's legacy became a subject of intense debate. To some, he was a cautionary tale, a vivid illustration of the consequences of a life steeped in crime and betrayal. To others, he was a complex figure who had chosen survival over loyalty, a decision that had shattered the very foundations of the criminal world he'd once embraced. The public's fascination with his story only grew, fueled by the enduring allure of the gangster lifestyle and the inherent drama of his choices. Henry's name became synonymous with the duality of the American dream, the promise of wealth, power, and respect, juxtaposed with the harsh realities of moral compromise and the fragility of one's humanity. As we conclude this gripping tale of Henry Hill's life in the criminal underworld, we hope you've enjoyed this journey through the complexities of loyalty, betrayal, and redemption. If you found this video captivating, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more fascinating stories from the annals of true crime. To ensure you never miss an upload, be sure to click the bell icon for notifications. And if you know someone who'd be intrigued by Henry's story, why not share this video with them? Your support helps us continue bringing these compelling narratives to life. Remember, history is full of complex figures like Henry Hill, whose stories challenge our perceptions and spark important discussions. Stay tuned for our next video, where we'll delve into another riveting tale from the shadows of society. Until then, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep exploring the depths of human nature.